Hello, I'm Natasha Chilingarian.
And I'm Michael Ogden. This is Shared Accounts with CU Times, sponsored this month by Bud Financial. Ding dong, ring the bells, bang those pots and pans, and wake up the kids. It's a new year and a new season of Shared Accounts. We are kicking off 2025 with a full month dedicated to a topic everybody seems to want to talk about and listen to. Artificial intelligence, also known as AI, also known as neural networks, also known as machine learning, also known as C3PO, whatever the hell you want to call it, everybody wants to talk about it. So, to kick off the second season of Shared Accounts, I want to bring in Natasha and producer Zach to ask an AI related question about an issue that is bugging me, and it concerns using Instagram. Do you both use it?
I do. Yes, I do.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. Okay. The question is this: does scrolling through Instagram make you nervous? Because it makes me nervous. And I'll explain why. The Instagram AI is so fast to adapt to my behavior as I'm scrolling that I never want to stop and look at something. Something like how to build a fireplace. And then I'll just have freaking fireplace related content all over my feed.
Right.
Do you guys see that? Does that make you nervous or is it just me?
Yeah, I do. And it's not just Instagram, but it's Facebook and just even web
Sure.
pages. And I also I don't use TikTok.
Mhm.
I'm kind of old for that. But I've heard
Yeah.
that's even more of a exact algorithm. But yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. And it annoys me because it's like, let's say I'm going to search online, I was looking up like Christmas gifts and like maybe a certain type of a product and
Sure.
looking at different options for a long time. Well, and then I'm thinking in the back of my mind, now I'm going to see ads for this the next, and it's just
Mhm.
irritating and it makes me not want to look things up because I
Yeah.
know that's just going to be all I'm going to see for the next few days.
Zach, what about you?
I wouldn't say nervous is the right word, but I definitely notice it.
Yeah. Because, like, I'll be just laying there in bed, it's 10 o'clock, whatever. I'm going to bed. I scroll through and then I scratch my nose. And so, therefore, I stop scrolling. I'm like, oh, crap. It thinks I like this squirrel video.
Right,
And,
right.
and that's what makes me all anxious.
Yeah.
So,
Quick follow-up question for both of
yeah.
you. What's been like the funniest targeted ad that you've seen that's like, it's targeted to you, but it's almost just makes you chuckle a little bit because it's not really that exact for you, but it's like they actually think this. Is there anything that comes to mind that's funny?
I would say I got targeted again. I think this was a scratching my nose situation. I got
Mhm.
targeted with like ads for Mylar balloons. I'm like, what?
Balloons? Okay.
Balloons? Because there was a video with a balloon in it or something.
I think my favorite example was I was shopping for gifts one year, and there
Yeah.
was a solid 2 weeks afterwards where Google was convinced I was an old African American woman,
Hmm. Okay.
which was fun. But yeah,
Yeah, that is
Okay.
funny. Yeah, I get all
Nice.
kinds of weird ones. There was one, and I have no idea where this even came from, but it keeps popping up in Facebook. It's like a book called The Absent Father's Impact on Daughters and how it like ruins their life after or something. And I'm like, did
Uh,
I ever say anything? Because I mean, my parents are still married and dad wasn't absent, and it just cracks me up. I'm like, where did this come from? I have no idea.
incredible.
this happened to a friend of mine, but she Googled how to get my toddler to stop hitting me and was
Okay.
given 5 different abuse hotline numbers.
Oh boy.
Sure. Sure. I guess that makes sense. Okay. This is
Yeah,
going to be a crazy year. So let's
sure is.
get to it. Everybody, welcome to season 2 of Shared Accounts with CU Times. Coming up, we are talking with Glenn Fratangelo. He is a longtime marketing professional and current head of product marketing and strategy at NICE Actimize. They are a provider of compliance and financial crime solutions for both banks and credit unions, and they're out in Hoboken, New Jersey. We're going to be talking with him about what seems to be everybody's favorite topic, like I was mentioning, AI. We will be discussing AI strictly, though, through a fraud and fraud fighting lens with him today. First up, we must take a break from this week and check in with Natasha. Hey, Ann.
Hey, Em.
How
Happy
are
New
ya?
Year. I'm good. I was gonna say Happy New Year because that's
Oh,
when
Happy New Year.
the episode will be coming out a little
Yeah,
early
yeah.
when we're recording this, but I'm doing well. How are you?
January. January is not a month I love, you know? Ugh,
No, it is really a downer of a month.
it is.
It really is.
Okay, I do need to ask because, we've had a stretch of holiday watching, we've had a stretch of a couple of breaks from work and all of that. What
Right.
did you watch this past week?
Yeah, so I actually just came off of a 5-day break.
Great.
Thanksgiving, had another day off. So as far as like TV, regular TV watching, unfortunately, it's really only kind of just in the true crime realm again.
Mhm.
I didn't really watch any movies, but I've been at home here with the parents, and my mom also loves true crime. So
Okay.
we've been watching a lot of Snapped. There was a Peacock
Wait, wait, wait.
special. Yep.
Snap, is that the same show that's been around for years?
It's been around a long time. Yeah. It's all
Okay.
about, it's only female murderers, is
Yes,
what it
that
focuses
that is the
on.
show. Okay,
It
that
is a
has
good
been
one.
around
Yeah.
a long
Been around a
time.
long time. Oh, yeah. No, that used to be my Sunday watch, like the old, and I would say the old narrator was so good. The new
Yeah.
version of the new format they follow isn't as good. The music isn't as good. The narrator isn't as good. It
Mm,
used to be so much better. Oh, there's so many good episodes from back in the day, and I just love
okay.
it. Anyway, oh, that was a little walk down memory lane. And I have a few other true crime things, but what I wanted to mention, which is kind of a different way to approach watching
Yeah.
in this conversation we have, I actually started my own YouTube channel over the weekend. And so I
What?
ended up watching a lot of YouTube just kind of to get some other ideas.
Okay.
So it is so this is it's something you know about. It's something I haven't talked about on the pod, I don't believe, but my favorite hobby when I'm not working or doing other things is counted cross stitch. So I
Oh,
do
right. Yeah.
full coverage counted cross stitch designs, and I have several finished pieces. I don't want to get into a whole thing of what it is. People can Google it if they don't know what it is, but
Right.
on YouTube, there's a whole subsection of people that have channels called FlossTube. And it's basically just people, it's like a vlog, I guess, but it's all
Okay.
about just their cross stitch projects. And they just talk about what they're working on and they show and they kind of talk
Right.
about their plans. And so I've been doing this for so long, this hobby, that I was like, I probably should do this and it might
Oh,
be just
this is
something fun to
great.
do. So yeah, I have launched that. I did it on Thanksgiving actually. I recorded it. I took a little break and went downstairs with
Oh.
my champagne and
Uh,
recorded it.
I love this. Zach, we must
Yeah.
put a link to this in the show notes.
So yeah, my handle is I'm called myself the dopamine stitcher. So that
Okay.
speaks to the style that I follow, which is like all the designs I do are basically really bright and colorful, very busy designs,
Mhm.
very maximalist.
Mhm.
There's a style of home decor called dopamine decor, and that's kind
Mm.
of from that, and that's all just kind of an explosion of color and whatever. So,
I'm learning so
yeah.
much from this. So, to explain to the audience really quick, Natasha, these items you cross stitch are insanely detailed. And you say things like, hey, when are you going to be done with this? And you're like, oh, in 7 months, or
Oh, it's
something.
even longer than that. Yeah, I right now
Yeah.
my next finish is probably 2027 is
Oh
what
my
I've calculated.
God. Anyway, these are incredible. Everybody check this out, what Natasha does. They are really beautiful.
A little plug for myself, which
Oh, I
nobody was allowed
love
to do
that.
that.
Great.
Real quick before
Uh,
we get our interview,
yeah.
did you have any significant Thanksgiving weekend watches that you wanted to bring up?
You know what? I'll mention a couple. I did finally get around to watching last year's movie that came out at Thanksgiving. It's called Thanksgiving. It's a horror movie. It's an Eli Roth movie. It was okay. 3 stars. It was really gross at times.
Oh,
Watched that on Thanksgiving and had a good time. Also on Thanksgiving, I don't think I've ever seen this, but it was 2002's The Panic Room.
oh,
Did you
really?
ever see that
Okay.
with
I did, yeah.
Jodie Foster and a little Kristen
It was a
Stewart?
little Kristen Stewart, yeah, it was one of her first big roles.
Oh,
So,
it was
yeah, I did. I
great.
saw it a long time ago. Yeah, it was really good.
Had a really fun time watching it, so
Yeah,
I loved it.
nice.
Panic Room, gave it 4
Awesome.
stars
A
on
fun one.
Letterboxd.
It's a good one, yeah. Okay, great.
Okay.
All right, well, speaking of the internet, we should get on to our interview, which goes
Sure.
all into AI. been our hot topic of the year,
Has
and
been.
will
Yep.
be of last year, 2024, and then it will be again probably in 2025.
Yep.
So just a few things that are kind of stood out to me from this interview with Glenn. He goes back to his 20s, which that was when, like all of us, he says it was a time when he thought he was the smartest person in the world, starting
Yeah.
out your career. And he gives a good piece of advice as well for people in their 20s starting in their career, saying that it's a good time to really dive into something where you're going to just set yourself up to fail and then just work as hard as you can to
Yeah.
not try to not fail.
Hmm.
Probably will anyway because you're in your 20s.
Right.
He goes into some really interesting predictions for 2025. So he has 5 really solid fraud predictions that I think our listeners will find interesting.
Hmm.
And finally, he talks about an interesting phenomenon that he's noticed on social media called the crimefluencer,
Yeah.
like the which is like, ugh, you know,
Hmm.
influencer, crimefluencer. People are using social media for a lot of really non-positive things lately. So
Terrible
anyway,
things.
terrible things. We have all of that and a lot more coming up next.
Hey, listeners, this episode is sponsored by our friends at Bud Financial. Trusted by credit unions and core banking providers, Bud Financial is an expert in transaction intelligence. Bud Financial's plug and play personalization platform improves member financial health, boosts cross sell, and has been shown to grow deposits by an average of over, get this, $6,000 per member. Wow. Find out more at thisisbud.com. That's thisisbud.com. Bud Financial.
Joining us in the virtual studio today is Glenn Fratangelo, head of Exceed Product Marketing and Strategy for NICE Actimize. Glenn, hey, welcome to Shared Accounts.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for joining, Glenn. We're happy to have you. All right, so Glenn, let's start off here to just kind of learn a little bit more about you and your background and your career. Can you tell us a little bit about your professional background and how you arrived at your current position that you're serving in at NICE Actimize?
Yeah, so I've been around 15 years in, I'd say, overarching marketing. I started out actually as a venture fund that I started like late 20s when I smartest person alive, knew everything, ready to take on the world.
Sure.
Started that, but that thankfully was with some people who had vast experiences in it. And this is right during like the recession and 2011, 2010, the recession, and their focus was on early stage companies because a lot of really smart people found themselves out of work
Hmm.
and they didn't want to go back in. They wanted to do something entrepreneurial. So the fund focused on really investing in people to deliver technology solutions that were innovative. Ran that, I worked with a few partners. We onboarded some funds, some investments, and what it turns out they all needed, because they were all builders or sellers. No one actually knew how to bring their product to market.
Okay.
So I wound up being like a de facto CMO for these early stage companies because the first thing they wanted to use our funds for was for marketing. So
Hmm.
instead of doing so, we said we're partnered with an agency that was partnered with the fund, and we had almost like an incubator accelerator type thing before that became cool. And we delivered these go-to-market solutions, and I pretended to be a marketer because, again, I never had real marketing experience till then. But again, thankfully, was partnered with, the president of the marketing agency that we partnered with and learned from the best and had a team around me and actually built my marketing career on the fly with experience and being able to actually more of an entrepreneurial mode to marketing. And then, fast forward, had the fund, bought an agency, built an agency from a few other agencies, rolled them up, sold them, went back in the real world into marketing. So I
Hmm.
went in as a VC, quote unquote, partner analyst, came out a marketer, and realized marketing is not just around delivering a message, but it's around bringing solutions to market, supporting the product teams that develop it to make solutions that work for business challenges, and really focusing on how you position solutions and how products can solve those solutions. So to tie this all back to a question you asked, how did I get to where I was with NICE Actimize, which is an amazing organization? It's
Hmm.
now 2020. We're in the midst of COVID. Everything moved digital. And I was lucky enough to join their fraud team to support product marketing as our fraud solutions were in need during this time as all of our clients were moving to digital. They needed to strengthen their digital channels for fraud prevention. And I was able to use my experience in bringing new and innovative products to market to support the growth Actimize was experiencing and supporting our clients provide additional support and protection to secure digital channels, digital payments, and new account fraud.
I love that you went back very quickly. You reminded all of us, I believe, in our 20s, how much we were faking it until we could figure it out. And I love your story like that.
Well, at least, I feel like you sometimes have to be honest with yourself. And
Oh, agree.
I don't want to digress too much from the topic, but if you're able to put yourself out there in a position to fail
Yeah.
and then work as hard as possible to avoid that, and then learn from those mistakes and learn from the successes and the wins, you come out better and stronger than
Yeah.
putting yourself in a position that you know you'll always succeed in.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. I do. So we're going to get into a bunch of fraud topics here in a second, but I do want to ask, now that you've been in this position since COVID, since 2020, can you tell us a little bit more about the relationship between credit unions and NICE Actimize right now?
That's a good question. So NICE Actimize is one of the largest providers, technology providers and vendors for fraud and financial crime across AML solutions, fraud solutions, case management, financial market communications with significant depth and breadth across the industry. And we serve, the largest banks in the world all the way down to our, SMB market credit unions and community banks, where we really expanded our focus on credit unions and community banks was with the acquisition of Guardian Analytics.
Right.
That had around 400 current clients at the time of acquisition. And they were acquired, and we have, as part of NICE Actimize, we've built that line of business out as our Exceed solution. And when you talk about NICE Actimize and our enterprise or our Excite and Exceed. Excite is our enterprise solutions, where we provide enterprise level solutions for large financial institutions. And we have our Exceed platform, which is purpose built to meet the complex and demanding needs of community banks and credit unions, because both these type of institutions, while they both experience fraud and financial crime equally, the nature of their organizations and the complexity of their challenges is very different. And with the acquisition of Guardian Analytics, with the continued investment in bringing our new Exceed products to market, building off of those 400 clients in the credit union and community banking space, we are now able to serve a larger swath of the market and also address those needs of credit unions and community banks.
Great.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks, Glenn, for that background and kind of setting us up here. But let's go ahead and move into the topic that we wanted to discuss with you, which is, what you deal with on a day-to-day basis in your role, which is fraud and the relationship between fraud and AI. So I was curious, we know now that fraudsters are using AI, obviously, to better succeed in their attacks today, and they're doing that in a multitude of ways. At what point did you begin to notice that was happening, that fraudsters were starting to use AI? When was that, and what were you starting to see happen?
Let me answer the question this way versus when did we notice, is that bad actors have always used technology, emerging technology, and whatever they can to give themselves an edge over institutions and those that they look to defraud. That is the nature that we live in, all the way from bank robberies in the 1800s and what they used then to the technology now that is being used to attack financial institutions digitally that is called fraud, but it still is the quintessential robbing a bank, robbing an institution, and going after those consumers and members they serve.
Yeah.
Bad actors have always looked at having the advantage, and they are not constrained by morals, ethics, regulations, large organizations that have policies, procedures, and governance. So whatever is out there, they are looking to exploit it, and they are focused on how does this derive a return for their investment of time and effort. What we've seen is how does generative AI now enable them to do this better? And that is what is worrisome. First and foremost, generative AI has democratized the use of AI and access to AI that removed the technological boundaries or requirements that bad actors needed to engage with it. They don't need to learn programming and coding and how to deploy machine learning models. They don't need to do this anymore. Yeah. They have generative AI. Generative AI has also removed the barriers to scale quickly and deliver fraud at scale, where they can now create synthetic identities at scale, fake documents at scale, text messages and emails at scale that sound better. If you remember compliance training, I don't know if you all did it, but we have compliance training and tells you how to look out for a bad email, and they say, look for spelling errors. Right? That used to be the whole thing, look for spelling errors.
Sure.
Guess what? With generative AI, the emails are written better than I write emails.
Sure.
They sound better than I write emails. A few years back, we uncovered a fraud ring network that was using fake websites, and it was selling legitimate items, but it was using the credit cards that were being used on their websites to then commit fraud. And we were able to ascertain and actually uncover this fraud network for our clients, say, hey, these 100 websites, once the cards are used, have a higher incidence of fraud. Almost 40% of the time are being used in fraud. The time it took the bad actors to create this network of websites was significant. Now it's down to hours, most likely, to build and deploy websites. Everything is being done faster because of generative AI, and that is the challenge.
So let's get into some more specifics there, and I really appreciate you making that analogy or connection from the 1800s to now. Bank robbery is bank robbery, let's say. But let's get into a few more specifics, because it sounds like you have a bunch of examples. Do you have some ways that fraudsters are leveraging AI, that they're automating phishing attacks against credit unions and their members?
It's automation. It's the ability to craft better content. It's deep fakes. It's fake voices or deep fake for voice and visual. ATO is by changing your information via the contact center. And with contact center, voice biometrics may no longer work because of deep fakes for your voice. If you look at visual deep fakes and how to circumvent liveness checks for synthetic identities, you have deep fakes there.
Yeah.
You have cases of deep fakes being used against organizations to perpetrate our CEO fraud. What the issue is there used to be a handful of fraud typologies. And when I first started in fraud, and then prior to, I was talking to our subject matter expert, and he took out a list and he said, these are your main fraud typologies. And these are kind of the main scams that happen that we see. Now, the list would go on and on and on, because the creativity of bad actors enabled by generative AI to not only create these schemes, to act upon them and execute them is more significant. And they are now crossing multiple payment types, multiple channels, and they're able to execute these more quickly.
Okay. Can I ask a follow-up to that? Because you were talking about scale and scale and scale. And I just want to get your thoughts. It does sound like they have really created just a fraudulent corporation, basically.
It is. Look at this. If I came to you, and I'll put my, when I was in the venture fund, and if I had a business plan that came to you and said, I need about $1,000. I have this thing I want to build.
Okay.
And this thing I want to build is going to reach out to 10,000 people a day. And 2% of those people are going to buy this product. And the average revenue and profit is going to be about $25. So simple math is 2% is 200 people times 25. It's like $5,000, right? Simple math.
Okay.
And I'm going to do this each day. And I'm going to take that $5,000. I might invest in another person doing the same thing. Well, guess what? That's what doing SMS attacks are, your smishing attacks. I'm buying the equipment. I'm buying the contacts. I'm buying the cell lines. And I am doing that. And I'm doing it not 10,000, maybe 100,000 people, whatever the number is. That's a great business model if you look at it from a prospect of ROI.
Yeah.
And then you go find someone else to do the same thing. And you now find someone else, and you do this on a daily basis. And you expand into email. You expand into higher value frauds of BEC. Yeah. So when you say a corporation, yes, there's organized crime. But if you look at how people are running it and these bad actors that are doing it, the business model that they're doing is effective because of technology, and with generative AI has become more profitable. And that is where financial institutions need to invest in, is how can you stop these bad actors from executing upon this? How can you make it more expensive for them to do it? How can you secure your institution, your customers and members against these attacks? Because to your point, when you say it sounds like a business, it is to an extent, because now that they've taken all the money, they have this ill-gotten gain, they need to create mule accounts. And to create mule accounts, you need to have synthetic identities, wittingly, unwittingly parties, and then all of a sudden you have employees, quote unquote, as mule herders. I was talking to an analyst a little bit ago on Datos, and they were talking around they have mule herders, and it's almost like they run it as an HR where they have
Ugh.
employees, and they're not really employees, but all these mules, and they know where they are, what they're doing, how they get paid. They have
Yeah.
a way to acquire them through social media. The scale of this is so significant,
Hmm.
and bad actors and fraudsters are always looking to attack the weakest link to execute upon it, to really capitalize that profit.
Yeah.
And that is the trouble. And that's why credit unions and community banks have their own complex needs, is because they need to have the protection, the security, they need to secure their institutions and their members and customers. And they might not have the same resources, both in financial and labor and data scientists and whatnot, to do what is required, which is have AI and machine learning to have better detection,
Hmm.
to be able to interdict appropriately, and then to build out and conduct proper investigations to not only address the current issue, but see if you have any other mule rings within your institution and close those down. And if you don't have AI and machine learning, if you don't have appropriate automation in place, it can be overly burdensome, and they might not be able to do it effectively and efficiently. And
Hmm.
this is where technology comes in, is to really give them that superpower, to give them that all-star on their team that is able to support them and carry them through.
Right.
Okay.
And we'll get a little more into what credit unions and other financial institutions should be doing now to fight what's going on. But Glenn, I wanted to go back really quickly to something you mentioned a couple times already, which is generative AI and the fact that it's now been democratized. And this was interesting to Michael and I as we were going through the questions before we met with you today. We had never heard of this before. So just this concept. So I was wondering, would you be able to just elaborate on that a little bit more on what does it mean for generative AI to be democratized, and what does that look like?
Generative AI hasn't been democratized, but it's democratizing access to AI. And AI is complex. It requires data scientists, it requires programmers, it requires skill sets that not everyone may have. You needed to be trained in how to build a model, you needed to be trained in how to build the data sets, and you needed to be trained how to deploy the model. With generative AI, it is democratizing access to the power of machine learning, to where now I can interface with AI through regular chat. And this means if I want to throw a massive data set in, I can have a prompt and say, find me X, Y, and Z, or provide me with the insight of this, or I need code to do this, and build code in order to build the website. I need you to build code for WordPress to create this website for me. This is what I mean by it's democratizing access to the power of AI. I need you to craft these emails. I need you to do this. I need you to automate these programs where normally it'd be RPA with an AI intelligence element. I can now do this through a simple chat interface.
Hmm.
And this was seen, the NVIDIA CEO said, you don't need to learn how to code anymore, because the main coding language is going to be plain English, the main means to interacting with AI and utilizing it. So it is access to powerful tools and machine and technology that is now generally accessible for $19.95 a month. That is the game changer, and it is changing everything throughout the society. And take it outside of financial crime and just the power of generative AI, but multi-agent orchestration using generative AI. So TikTok, right? It's been on the chopping block to shut it down in the United States. Imagine if it does get shut down. Imagine if someone has built the right generative AI agents and orchestrated them appropriately and said to one agent, I need you to download all of the TikToks that were ever created. Another agent, I need you to download all of the audio and the filters ever created. I need you to download all of the TikToks that went viral and tell me why.
Yeah.
And then you'd have two agents that would constantly create one TikTok and then review against and analyze as a adversarial agent to then say make these viral, and it will build thousands upon thousands of TikToks and only deploy the ones that will go viral. And
Yeah.
that could be done in seconds. That can be done
Wow.
in minutes. That can be done hours. Whatever the time frame for the computing process could be, it can be automated. And that is the power of generative AI. Now imagine that in a fraud attack. Imagine that building fake identities for mules. Imagine that in committing, attacking organizations, BEC, business email compromise. That is when we look at fraud at scale.
Yeah.
It's no longer organized crime, but is organized financial fraud, financial crime via AI agents. And those become your bad actors. They're all digital.
Hmm.
Wow. It was really crazy. So, okay, let's move on to something you touched on briefly before. Obviously, our podcast audience is mostly people working for credit unions. What can they do to counter this? This fraud that's just become too easy now to perpetrate and even harder to detect at the same time using AI. What are some key best practices or top must do's for credit unions that you would advise, and the types of tools they can use drawing upon technology to help them fight this fraud?
So that's a good question and something that we talk to our clients and prospects about. But if I were to make it as simple as and easy as possible, one is you have to inventory your technology, inventory your detection, inventory your current risk tech, your financial crime and compliance program. And then you have to understand where the weaknesses are, where your fraud is coming from, where your losses are coming from, and you need to invest in those according to the highest impact. I think that's the first thing because, again, credit unions might not be able to address each aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, you need to look at how can you utilize AI. One is, are you already using AI and machine learning? Yes or no? If it is yes, where are you currently using it? And can you be using it in more places? If you're not using AI and machine learning, how can you utilize AI and machine learning? What processes and governance do you need to have in place to do so? And what are your operational limitations in utilizing it? Do you need data scientists on site or within your organization? Can you outsource it? Or do you look at solutions that have AI and machine learning out of the box that is purpose-built with behavioral analytics that continuously learns and optimizes within your organization? If you're in a credit union and you don't have a lot of transactions, especially fraud transactions that can be tagged to continually optimize the model, it's not going to work effectively. So you need a self-learning model to do so, right? So you need to understand where you are in your journey of AI, how you can use it, where you can use it better, the implications of using it to your operational team, because ultimately AI will find and trigger more alerts. So you need to ensure that it is mitigating false positives, not to overburden your
Sure.
investigative teams.
Yeah.
And then even with minimal optimizing false positives, you're going to find more fraud. You're going to find more financial crime because of the better detection AI and machine learning brings. How can you add automation to the investigation process through generative AI and just good old-fashioned automation rules, right?
Yeah.
So generative AI is incredibly powerful in investigations. You can have generative AI used to summarize an alert for the investigator. You can have generative AI call additional enrichment for the alert automatically and summarize that aspect of it. Once the investigator makes the decision and had the proper decision on it and determines it is true fraud or true financial crime, it's a true positive, you can have generative AI actually craft the SAR narrative, which SAR narratives can take between 30 to 90 minutes to create in a matter of minutes. So you can utilize AI and generative AI across fraud and AML
Mm-hmm.
and the investigations and the ensuing investigations are conducted. That's the first thing you need to do.
Okay.
Next is you need to be able to look at where your fraud losses are happening. So if you have check fraud, which is prevalent, if it's P2P channel, if real-time payments, you're onboarding and you need access and you know you're going to start having real-time payments, you need real-time interdiction. Are mules an issue? Do you even have the ability to detect mule networks within your organization?
Mm-hmm.
And this goes into how is your account opening process? Are you able to detect synthetic identities appropriately? Do you have the ability to mitigate friction on the account opening process because you're using machine learning and AI to do so? There's significant ways of deploying AI within your organization, but I would always say you need to first understand where you are and then put a plan in place to expand your detection across
Mm-hmm.
fraud and AML proactively and based upon need, and that it is important to then understand and ascertain the operational impacts and deploy, again, generative AI, and automation to address the downstream impact of the ensuing higher detection due to AI, which is good to mitigate and harden your financial institution against the threats fraudsters and bad actors are conducting.
So let's slide into the last question of this part of the interview, because we were speaking yesterday, Glenn, and you had shared with me that you actually have come across some new data about the top 5 fraud predictions in 2025. Can you run through those real quick?
I can, thank you. So we have, looking at our top 5 predictions and what we believe are the fraud predictions in 2025.
Hmm.
And they do align nicely to where we are, and what we are seeing. So the top 5 global fraud predictions, the first one is application fraud. We're
Okay.
seeing a surge of synthetic identity fraud, or application fraud, whatever you might want to call it, but a surge in synthetic
Yeah.
identity. And so that's fueled by data breaches and AI. And that's what we spoke about. There's more data breaches, there's more access to data on the dark web, and now you have generative AI and AI be able to create these genuine looking synthetic identities.
Hmm.
These synthetic identities, they're able to do this quickly, but they're able to, augment verifiable credentials and combine them with an infinite possibility of combinations that seem like they look good in terms of social, date of birth, etc. And you are doing this at scale with generative AI. So you're not going to have someone born like 1801, right? You're not going to have
Right.
to enter all these pieces in. You're able to do it, and you're able to meld genuine and synthetic data together to create synthetic identities that will pass
Hmm.
the test, for organizations that don't have proper controls in place. And that's why you need to strengthen the front door.
Okay.
The next piece is authentication. So this is deep fakes, right? Deep fakes are putting pressure on the authentication controls. And this is authentication within document verification, as part of account opening. This is the ability to conduct account takeover and circumvent voice biometrics on contact centers. This is the ability to circumvent liveness checks with it as well. So deep fakes to circumvent authentication controls.
Okay.
One of the other pieces are NACHA rule change. So within the
Yeah.
US, and it's going to impact all financial institutions, the ACH rule change happening in 2026, that you're now going to need to monitor inbound funds. That is going to double the amount of transactions through the ACH channel your institution is currently monitoring, theoretically increasing your amount of alerts that is true fraud, or that you do have money, illicit funds that came under false pretenses to mules within your organization. So it's a two-sided problem. You're going to have detection, and then you have investigations of the mules, and
Hmm.
that mule may be part of a mule ring that you'll need to address. Notch has done this to address synthetic identity, mules, and to mitigate the risk on their channel to be used for scams because of the high values that are transferred on their rail, which is significant. Payroll fraud, invoices, etc. There's significant losses. We see the other pieces, detection and being able to detect payment scams. So authorized fraud, we see increasing, and we see the need of FIs to deploy new detection technology
Yeah.
because it is not unauthorized that we've seen before. We keep seeing scams become more prevalent, and it's harder to detect because it is your customer or member pressing play. They're the ones sending the funds, and it is due to better social engineering, which again,
Hmm.
social engineering can be optimized due to generative AI. You can have
Yeah.
better text messages, you can have your voice redone, you can find out more about the individual, you can create scripts to do so, to have your other bad actors talk to people. You can have all these pieces done to conduct better social engineering scams.
Right.
And last but not least, we're seeing liability shift. There's no liability shift currently in the US. It has happened in the UK. We're following this very carefully
Hmm.
because what happens in the UK, a lot of other countries do look at, and they want to see how that is impacting consumers in terms
Right.
of protecting them from scams, which is a significant issue in the US. I don't foresee liability shift happening immediately here, but it is on our radar. It is happening in other countries. And if you look at the NACHA, the rule change with NACHA, it's not a liability shift, but I would say it has the hint of potential liability shift
Agree.
in the event that FIs don't adhere to it. They might expose themselves to liability in the event of a loss from the sender.
That's an incredible list you just went over.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thanks for
Uh,
that, Glenn. Unfortunately, it seems like with every new type of technology, new innovation in payment platforms or what have you, new opportunity for fraud. So we'll see how things shake out in 2025, and hopefully we can all stay on top of that. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to move on to the fun part of our interview now, Glenn. This part is all about you. We just have a few fun, light little questions to close us out here. So, are you ready?
Sounds good.
All right. So, first of all, where are you from? What's your hometown?
Grew up in Great Neck, New York, so that's the North Shore of Long Island.
Awesome.
okay.
Excellent.
So if you could give your hometown, Great Neck, a new slogan or motto, what would it be?
I mean, some people love it. I ran
Here's your opportunity to tell us what you really think of it.
Yeah, yeah.
run fast, run soon. No,
I like that.
I think just like anywhere else, I think it's either you either go home or you never go back home. I was the latter.
There you go. That's an honest answer. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So as we're recording this now, it's early December. Everyone's getting into their holiday spirit, and a lot of people like watching Christmas movies. So I wanted to ask you, Glenn, do you have a favorite Christmas or holiday movie that you'll be watching this month?
Home Alone already started.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, good call.
yeah. You have to do Home Alone.
Is it the first one only or the first and second?
So I think the second one's funnier, but we
Hmm.
always
I
start with
agree.
the first. And then the Christmas Story was the least favorite. I remember just growing up, you didn't have cable back then, and it would
Sure.
just play on repeat on
Yeah.
Christmas Day, and there was nothing
Yeah.
else. So I do not need to see A Christmas Story ever again.
That's more PTSD, it sounds like.
That's a me issue, but I definitely think
Yeah.
Home Alone is the top one.
Yeah. Well, I have to say we have something in common there, Glenn, because Home Alone 2, specifically the second one, not the first one, but the second one is my absolute favorite of all time. So
Oh, that's interesting.
I think I still have it on VHS, actually, but don't have a VHS player anymore, though. So I'll have to see if
Okay.
it's on one of the streaming channels.
All right, Glenn, do you do resolutions at all?
I try not to commit to things I can't commit to.
Okay, great, because I'm the same. So I'm going to pose the question this way. Do you look at 2025 with a certain lens of, you know what, Glenn, let's try to do this year? Do you have anything like that?
No, I think
Okay.
that's my personal opinion is if you're waiting on a specific day to make a change, you're not going to make it because you're not in the mindset to just do it. I remember in college, I worked in hotels, which I do recommend everyone should work in a service-based industry before
Yep.
finding their career because it helps you work with people, understand
Hmm.
people, appreciate people in difficult situations. But I had a general manager who was at the Waldorf and he was there forever, great guy. And again, I was like 22, 23, something like that. I
Hmm.
was getting my MBA and in this massive boardroom and banged his hand on the table. And he goes, don't do get done because a bunch of department heads were saying, we're doing these things. We're doing these things. And he just
Yeah,
said, I don't care what you're doing. And he would just say, don't do get done. And that's, I think, very similar to resolutions. You know, if you're doing something, you just get it done, you focus on it. Nothing's going to change between
I love
December
that.
31st and January 1st,
Yep.
except for any tax loss harvesting that you want to do on your
Yeah.
portfolio. That is it.
Yep.
Yeah, my HSA, gonna use up
Yeah.
all the money in that. Sure.
Or your PTO days, right? That's it. That's the only
Ugh,
thing you need to
Right.
do.
crap.
Great, honest answer. I love that. So, Glenn, next question. So, going back again to your youth in Great Neck, what was the first album you ever bought or remember listening to a lot? First album or CD back then?
Don't you have to first explain to people what CDs are?
I think our
Um,
audience gets it. Yeah.
it was, I think, Metallica. I forget which
All
one it
right.
was. I remember it had like a black cover.
Was it the Black Album, probably then?
Maybe like what they
Yeah.
did with the orchestra in the
Yeah. Yeah.
background.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was that one.
Sure.
Great
Okay.
album. All
Great.
right. Last question for you, Glenn. What is the last movie you watched?
I think Minions 4 with the kids on Prime.
Okay.
Okay. What'd you think
Okay.
of it?
I don't know. I didn't watch it much. I was on my phone half the time, but
There you go.
it seemed, it was funny. And, you almost at this time of life, you just watch something, keep something on in the background is the extent of watching.
Yeah, short attention
Absolutely.
spans. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Great.
that also goes along with the word of the year. I don't know if you heard this. Brain rot, supposedly the Merriam-Webster word of the year.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, I don't know. It's just about people that watch things that are mindless and you don't benefit from.
Well, there's a more significant thing to that, and not to get off topic, but it's also actually leans into financial crime, so I can spin it that way too. It has a lot to do with the addictive nature of
Mm,
social media, and
sure.
that it keeps the algorithms keep bringing you down certain rabbit holes based on their data that they're getting from you, and not just from
Mhm.
what you watch, but everything accessible on
Mhm.
your phone at the time that you have allowed them to access and leverage. And people are not trying to focus on learning more and educating themselves and whatnot. But as it pertains to financial crime, TikTok and YouTube Shorts and others have shifted, and people are using it for a term I'd like to coin is crime fluencing. Just like you have
Hmm.
influencers, you have crime fluencers, and these are the individuals that are on social media that are able to benefit from the algorithms of where people are looking for easy money And this
Mm.
is where you have the Chase glitch, where they went down that rabbit hole where people are become mules, wittingly or unwittingly, to easy
Yeah.
money. All these aspects actually coincide with social media and the rise of crimefluencing through social media, where these bad actors are using it to influence individuals to think what they're doing
Mhm.
is not a crime, as in
Right.
free money from Chase or Fidelity, or easy money being a money transfer job. They make it seem that it's not a crime, but meanwhile, these are very serious things that people are doing. And it's because of what you say, quote unquote, brain rot. It's more of a nefarious issue that it's social, rounded around these social media services that bring people into algorithms or down rabbit holes that can make them more susceptible to crime.
Well,
Wow.
Glenn, we're going to have you on again to talk all about that, but now we have to wrap it up. Everybody, that is Glenn Fratangelo, head of Exceed Product Marketing and Strategy for NICE Actimize. Glenn, thank you so much for being so direct, so honest, and just joining us on the show today. We loved having you.
Oh, thank you. This was amazing. Have a happy holiday, happy new year, and look forward to speaking again.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much, Glenn. Happy holidays to you too. Really appreciate you coming on. And for all of our listeners, please subscribe to Shared Accounts with CU Times anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever. You know how this works. And if you want to rate us, we'd love your feedback. And for those of you with questions or comments, feel free to email me over at nchillingarian@cutimes.com, or you can email Michael at mogden@cutimes.com.
And a big thank you to our producer, Zach Nyheisel. Thanks, Zach. Join us again next week for a new episode of Shared Accounts with CU Times. Until then, thanks for listening.